Hi, it's Ken. Welcome to this week's Frequently Asked Spiritual Questions video. If this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when new videos are released. My focus in responding to your questions is to support your deepening experience of and relationship with the divine. This week we have two questions, actually, very similar from my perspective, one from Catherine, one from Val. Catherine says, Ken, I am faithfully awaiting your answer to this question. I am so lost for a while now. I am an angel energy healer, Reiki second master, and I do not even get requests. I am a brilliant channel, yet never get an opportunity to put myself out there. I say brilliant lightly, but it is true when I work with someone, which has not been for a long time, they are happy, enlightened, and believers by the message they receive or the healing they receive. Maybe, just maybe, there is someone in your community with this issue too. I am grateful for any help with this in advance. Also, I more than know this is my energy, for want of a different word, that is blocking me. Blessings to all, Catherine. Catherine, rest assured, there are many others in the community, many others in the world, other spiritual messengers who are having this experience. Val asks, or reflects, Hi Ken, not sure whether this question is appropriate. After miraculous healing of horse with distant healing, became healer and Reiki master, studied spiritual philosophy with partner, received details of one past life, told important sometime get published, spiritual work to do together, split up but thought would end up together, all gone wrong. Partner passed away. No suitable category is right for the book. No longer working. Many physical problems, one after another. Seem to be going backwards in a vicious circle. Whenever I try, I seem to be stuck. The final straw, I just broke my wrist. Val. Okay. Thank you both, Catherine and Val, for sharing so vulnerably about something that is very near to my heart. And I believe this is a component of the journey that we go on as spiritual messengers. So just so that we're clear, if this is your first video with me and you wonder what I mean by spiritual messenger, I believe every single human being is a spiritual messenger. To me, a spiritual messenger is someone who consciously is not only aware, but embodied in the divine mystery, expressing as them, and then consciously aware of that presence in their interactions and sharings with others. I believe we're all spiritual messengers. And oftentimes, spiritual messengers are sort of put into a category of healer or spiritual teacher or author or these types of things. But I believe in every expression of our lives. Every expression of our lives as human beings, no matter where we are on the planet, no matter our beliefs or perspectives, spiritually or otherwise, we are all spiritual messengers. Okay, that out of the way. This is a really important aspect, and it's a function of our developmental journey. When I say this, I mean this dynamic of what Catherine is saying, I'm not getting opportunities to share my gift, and what Val is saying, challenging things keep coming up. They may seem like very different questions or requests. As I say, from my perspective, they're pointing to the same exact dynamic. So just by way of reminding us or sharing some language that we can utilize in my further exploration around this question with you, I see the stages of consciousness that we go through in a pretty simple way, but the richness of each stage of consciousness is quite extraordinary. Stage 0, God consciousness, is interesting. Children are born in that stage of consciousness, but it's not something we need to really focus on in today's video. The other stages of consciousness are something to be aware of and perhaps to focus in on. The first stage of consciousness, victim consciousness. The second stage, controlling or manifestor consciousness. The third stage, conduit consciousness. Okay, these really, I believe, set the stage. Too many stages. These are the context for our conversation and exploration today. And here's why. We have these experiences as human beings where we are the victim of life, of circumstance, of other people. And the origin of victim consciousness is 100% spot on. At some point, when we were all children, something happened where we were legitimately a victim, whatever it was. And a story got built around that, and victim consciousness grew out of it, where everything that is going on is a function of this dynamic. And at some point, presumably, we became aware that we could take responsibility for the experience of our lives. And we discovered in that transition a move into the empowered, still separate self. The empowered self is saying, hey, I've got the answer. And actually, the shift here is really profound from an internal dynamic standpoint. In victim consciousness, God's abandoned me, whereas God, I'm being punished, many different expressions of that. In controlling consciousness, God is my servant. What an extraordinary shift. It's amazing. And then in conduit consciousness, I actually subordinate myself to the divine in late stage 2, in the late stages of controlling consciousness. And the reason I do that is that I discover the limits of my personal power. You could say at some deeper level, controlling consciousness is about securing the thing, the origin of the wound, if you will, that came into our awareness or our experience energetically, emotionally, and otherwise in victim consciousness. All right, how does this relate to this dynamic? These stages of consciousness are mirrored in our journey as spiritual messengers. So when we begin stepping into our gifts, the process of integration is amplified and accelerated, and those aspects that are still held in separation are also amplified and accelerated. They come forward in a huge way. Let's try this from a different perspective as I'm sort of getting rolling here. Years ago, I did a workshop, and there are actually some videos here on the channel that I've posted from this workshop that I did and talk that I gave at Mile High Church in Denver. And I don't know if I have video of actually this part of the talk. That I can remember the first talk that I gave with that group years ago. I said to them, have you ever noticed how, and this is a group of practitioners within the New Thought movement in the Church of Religious Science. And I said to them, have you ever noticed how you can perform miracles for everyone in your life, but when it comes to your own life, you somehow aren't able to make that happen? And everyone leaned forward on their seats because it's an experience that is common. And the reason for the disconnect between these two perspectives, and I will dovetail this into these questions from Catherine and Val, is that when we're working with other people, in particular, if they're not close relations, people we have connection to, in other words, if we have little or no attachment with the people that we're sharing our gifts with, it just flows. Something extraordinary and bordering on magical happens. Miracles begin taking place. It is truly extraordinary. And we can see the genesis of that dynamic in both questions. Catherine describes she shared these gifts, and the people who received the gifts had extraordinary experiences. She's asking another question, though. Why is this dynamic not coming up? I'll address that here in a moment. Val is saying there was all this profound experience of resonance. This is how I'm interpreting it. Val, please feel free to follow up with additional questions or comments below or through the web form link below for additional questions. I'm interpreting it to mean I had this experience at the beginning of this part of my life where there was all this resonance and flow, and then things began to not flow anymore. And they stopped flowing in a profound way. For example, a person who I thought who was meant to be my partner in the body, we separated, but I thought we would be together forever, and then they died. The book I was supposed to write, there's no clear category. What is going on? And what's happening, I want to suggest, in both of these dynamics is a shift from an experience of the truth of what is really available, but within the context of controlling consciousness, still identified with the empowered separate self. This profound flow is happening. Catherine is reflecting on it from the perspective of the journey of the messenger, right? And I believe Val is probably talking about this, yes, in the journey as a messenger, but also as it relates to her own personal experience. Notice how there's a parallel between these two dynamics. And in both cases, there's a glass ceiling that's showing up, a limit to the power of the empowered separate self. No matter how extraordinary the gifts are that express through you, whether you have been certified in a modality or not, I want to suggest the certification of modalities is absolutely powerful and essential if you feel called that direction. If you don't, it's not essential. It's powerful, though. It's not a waste of time if you feel called that direction. But ultimately, I believe messengers are responding to the call in three, that is God's call on our life as messengers, in three basic ways. We pause, we do nothing, and sometimes that's divinely directed, instructed. We seek structure. We seek someone else's structure, and that can come in the form of a certification of a modality. It could come in the form of someone else's cosmology, understanding of how things work. We learn, we study with them. That's one way we respond to the call. And the third way is we step into the divine mystery. We step into the unknown. There is no context. We have no idea where we're headed. That direction, you can see how that mirrors the movement in the internal dynamic of moving into conduit consciousness, where I surrender. I realize there is a limit to what I can create. And the answer to that which I seek is with God or the divine, by whatever name. And when I surrender to that energy and turn my entire life over actually to that energy, something else begins expressing in, through, and as me in every part of my inner and outer life. How does this relate to this journey as messengers? I can't tell you how many messengers I've worked with in private session who have this experience. They have this amazing experience early on in their career. They're sharing, they're in total flow, they're making lots of money. They're just connecting on an amazing level. And then something happens and they're not making money. They're not being engaged. What happened was they got a glimpse of who they were, and then attachment began expressing. And the internal, personal, interior work didn't get done to effectively support the embodiment of those gifts. That is to say, the entirety, the opening of the entire vessel and being for divine presence to express through that individual. So interestingly enough, in both cases, the answer to this question is to release control and do the work that is there to do. So for Catherine, it seems the work that is there to do is really about embodying the divine fully as a messenger. And interestingly enough, when we do that work, something different begins to happen. And I want to share an example of this from a retreat I held. I was doing an embodied messenger experience and was sitting with this extraordinary group of messengers. And we were talking about embodiment. Surprise, surprise. And I said to the room, the words don't matter. And there was a wordsmith, an author in the room, who got very upset with me. And she said, the words do matter, Ken. And I said, okay, the words matter, but not really. And let me explain what I mean. What I mean is that once you're embodied, you can say any word or no words, and your gifts and your message are communicated merely by your presence as an embodied messenger, even in the silence. And if you're disembodied or you're not fully embodied, no matter how extraordinary the words are, the transmission of God's expression as you does not carry through. If you want to think of it visually, think of it this way. If I think of an idea, a spiritual idea, and I talk about it, it's interfacing with you at the level of your mind. If I embody it, I don't know if you can see this at the level of my heart, I'm pointing to my chest. If I embody it here, you might feel it emotionally. But if I embody it, and now I'm pointing to my hips, if I embody it fully into my being, then the transmission is included in the carrying wave of God expressing as my presence whatever words I may choose to share or not. And we can take it even a step further. And this is a little mind-bending, but it is absolutely true. When you record or express as an artist, as the divine expression that you are, you write a book, paint, sing a song, all the myriad expressions, all the myriad creative expressions that are available to us as spiritual messengers. When you create from the perspective in your being presence as an embodied messenger, the carrying wave of God's expression as you is connected directly to your consciousness in real time. So even as you continue to integrate the transmission contained in that creative expression, be it a book or a video or an audio or a song, it changes over time. I can give you examples of this as well. So if we put all these things together, whether we're moving through this dynamic in the internal process of integration or vertical embodiment, or we're moving through the process of external integration, it's really not external. It's the reflection of that internal work. But now instead of vertically embodying, that is going through the process of integrating the empowered and disempowered separate selves and surrendering my life and my being to the divine to allow that expression to come through however it will, regardless of what my ideas are of what I think my life should be. That's the interior process, right? The exterior process, the horizontal embodiment as a spiritual messenger is the same. But now the question is the message in a disempowered, an empowered, or a surrendered? That is to say, if it's surrendered, it is the pure expression of the divine as you. And if you've done the work of the vertical and the horizontal embodiment, your being presence carries that out into the world. And you will not believe what happens as a result. Now, I want to give you these examples, and so you can have a practical example of what I'm talking about. Okay? First example. At that retreat, we were talking about embodiment. I said words don't matter. A member of the circle said they do. I said ultimately it's about being embodied. We proceeded to do embodiment work for the entire day. It was a beautiful day. It was an extraordinary day. We wrapped up the day. Everyone did what they did. In the evening, we came back the following morning, and another member of the group raised her hand, and we passed the mic, whoever had the mic in the circle, and she said, I just want to share something. And I said, great, tell us. She said, last night, I got a call from 4 new clients. I haven't done anything different. I didn't post anything. I haven't had calls from new clients in 6 months or more. Apparently, this embodiment stuff works. It is that powerful. Really. This is not just a passing thing. We're talking about deep, sustaining, continued focus in this area. This is not a light switch. Embodiment at this level as a messenger is a commitment. It is a profound practice that extends and deepens into every area of your being. Second example, I shot a video, which is actually now posted as part of this channel, and I'll link it here, about embodiment. It's the vertical embodiment. It's the spiritual mastery, the interior process. It used to be on the homepage of my website, and it had been up for 3 or 4 years, and a buddy of mine texted me and said, "Oh my gosh, I just saw that amazing new video on embodiment that's on your website." And I texted her back and I said, "Same one that's been there for years. I just went through a huge transformation and deeper level of integration and embodiment. And I have opened more fully to who I am." Instantly, that was transmitted through a video that was sitting on a hard drive somewhere being spooled off on the website. There are lots and lots of examples of this. In either case, externally or internally, we run into the limit of control. If we go back to the group at Mile High Church, my comment to them was, you have an opportunity to move from controlling consciousness, where you are the one directing and making so, to conduit consciousness, where you realize the divine is moving through you as you, in you, including not just in the expression of your raw gifts, that third path that is available to us as spiritual messengers, but also in our lives as messengers. We begin to receive the gifts that God expresses as each of us uniquely as you. Those gifts are first and foremost meant for you. And then as you integrate and embody them, if you choose, you can make them available for others. It's a big topic, powerful questions. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Val, for your questions. I'm really interested to hear what's coming up for you as you listen and experience and engage with this video. Would you share in the comments below questions, reflections, agitations, anything that's coming up? Let's engage. If you have a question coming up, there's a link in the description. You can ask that question for further clarification about this or any part of your spiritual life and journey. If this video resonates with you, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe and click the bell to be notified. Please do make sure you join our community by heading over to kenwstone.com and add your name and email address to the newsletter. Peace.